I want to talk a little bit about Austin. It's a city that's produced housing at a rate about 4 to 5 times per capita as Charlottesville, most of it multifamily, buildings of 5 or more. And in 2015, housing prices were about the same as Charlottesville. Now they're 50 to 60% higher. All that construction has not made it cheaper. I want to talk specifically about East Austin. We'll take a walk through there. That's a neighborhood that was a very modest neighborhood, and over the last decade or so, it has seen an explosion of mid-rise development. So this can give you a sense of what happens when you encourage that sort of development and you remove boundaries to it. And I think it would be instructive for people from Charlottesville to have a look at what's happened there. Now, there are some good things about this development. I think one of the good things is that a lot of it took place on low-value commercial land. So it was, I would say, successful commercial conversion. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And that's something that I think it would be good to see in Charlottesville, and we are unsure about whether that's actually going to happen. On the bad side, what you see is a massive demographic transformation. You've had a ton of people moving in from outside. In a given year over the last decade, almost 10% of the population comes from out of the side of the city. So it's new people coming in, much more affluent than the people who were there before, and they have really made everything more expensive, and they consume a lot of services, and the people who provide those services need housing, and it's not clear where they're going to get that housing. It's clear where they're not going to get the housing, from the market. And the leadership of Austin has been shrewd enough to recognize that. They proposed a $350 million housing bond, which passed just a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps that can be a lesson for Charlottesville, where there seems to be a temptation to rely on the alchemy of the market instead of on spending money to actually build or subsidize affordable housing that the market will not provide. But anyway, without further ado, the purpose of this video is to walk you through East Austin to show you what it looks like after there's an explosion of mid-rise development. So let's go and do that.
All right, what do we got here? This is I-35. You can see downtown Austin, huge, all brand new skyscrapers, new stuff being built. That's down by the lake. That used to be sort of low value, commercial, some warehouses. This is I-35. Just next to I-35 here, we got some mid-rises, brand new mid-rises. Up here, some more mid-rises. You can see all the way up I-35, mid-rises. Not exactly where I'd want to live, pretty noisy. What was there before was sort of gas station, strip mall, stuff like that. You got some big office here, and all the way down 6th Street, which we'll take a look at later, more mid-rises. All of this stuff, again, not in the most, it's pretty accessible, but you're right next to the highway. You're talking about $3 to $4 a square foot. So as we head into East Austin, that's a Whole Foods with apartments over it again, talking about $3.50 or so, $3.50 per square foot per month kind of rentals. You've got, I'm going to zoom out here, another mid-rise here, all the way down this street, really probably for 1.5 miles to 2 miles down the street, it's just all mid-rises that were not here 10 and some of even 3-4 years ago. What was here, some of this was commercial, not a ton of residential, but a little bit of residential. This was traditionally had been a lower income neighborhood. In the time of segregation, had been a black neighborhood. That's been entirely deleted. And now you have these mid-rises again, where you're talking about apartments. I don't know, a studio in the $1,500 to $2,000 a month range, 2 or 3 bedroom, you know, $2,500 to $4,000, that kind of level. So definitely nothing affordable here. But at least most of what was along this street, 6th Street, was not residential. So residential was not replaced. It was good commercial conversion. This is the Corazon, and you know, nice mid-rise, just I guess what you would like here. And you can get yourself a studio for $1,700, or a 1-bedroom that's 580 square feet for $2,000 a month. Down here you see some, again, some more mid-rises. There was nothing, that was parking lots, and it was adjacent to a rail line, which has been turned into light rail, so that's kind of a good spot for mid-rise housing. But again, it's pretty, you're talking about pretty expensive stuff. here you see transformation in progress. This is what you would saw on, in East Austin, 4th Street, 5th Street, 6th Street in the past. You can see this is about to come down, and you see more little sort of low-rise commercial. That's what was here. And just across the street from what we were looking at before, that's what goes in. This is a sort of a smaller scale infill mid-rise. Rise we were just looking at before actually is all Airbnbs, $800 a night. You got some office buildings behind there, but still mostly residential. And you can see if you look way down there, this just goes on and on and on. Incredible amount of building, and things have only gotten more expensive. Some sense of what was here was kind of like low-rise, low-value commercial. I think, what you might say is that this is what we would have considered in Austin a sensitive area, but this is actually where it makes sense to build things because the land value is lower. But what you get is stuff like that. It's very expensive. So just something to think about as we consider zoning in Charlottesville. Kind of cheap old hotel that I'm sure will be soon to come down. Over there you can see some big mid-rise. That's called the Arnold. That was one of the early ones over here, and we're probably a mile and a half from downtown now, so it's not super close to where the jobs are. The Arnold, so we can get a shot of it over here. Your kind of typical 5-story mid-rise. Studio there is almost $3,000 a month. I think the rents here are about $5 to $6 per square foot per month. Why this one's more expensive, I don't know, but it is what it is, and definitely not affordable. Another mid-rise, which they've turned into sort of short stay, up to 3-month kind of stay, furnished apartments. You don't even want to know what that costs. And we've got another mid-rise just down from it. This, just like I say, it goes on and on. We are again, now probably about 2 miles from downtown.
I'm just going to cheat here and use Google Street View to give you a sense of the transformation that has taken place over time. You can see tremendous amount of building here, and there was just some very modest stuff there only a few years ago.
You can see, this is looking back towards downtown. We're pretty far from downtown, and it just goes on and on all the way down here, and it goes on like this, 2 blocks that way and a block that way, 2 blocks to the south and a block to the north. So this is basically a block off here. We've got this condo complex that is right along the light rail. In spite of the fact of being right along the light rail, there's parking underneath. There's plenty of parking off street, and this is more modest maybe than some of the things we saw on the other street, but still we're talking $700 to $900 a square foot for sale price. So again, not particularly affordable. And again, when we ask the question of the people who live here are fairly prodigious consumers of low-wage services. So where do the people who provide those services live now? And are they in need of affordable housing, and are they getting it? This is some of the housing that, type of housing that was here, such as it is. Again, a lot of what was here was commercial, but the housing was fairly modest, and I suspect the people who are living in this building are not customers of the building over here. It's definitely a palpable process of gentrification that's gone on here. Think about this place, Eastside Station, Austin. Studios, $1,500 to $2,500. Large apartments, $3,000, all the way up to $8,000. And again, you're right on the light rail, but look what's behind there. We can zoom in. Huge amount of this given over to parking. And, more and more over here, all the way back to downtown. I think, the important thing to note is this is all really expensive, but you look at any one of these buildings, they all have apartments available. So I think that raises an interesting point, compared to Charlottesville, the difference between market liquidity and depth on the one hand, and whether the market is expensive. Austin is an expensive market, but if you want to find an apartment today, no problem, because the market is liquid. Charlottesville, on the other hand, is not expensive. The costs are a fraction of here, but it's not liquid. There's just not a lot of inventory, not a lot of turnover. And so it just goes to show that these are two different things: liquidity and richness. And we shouldn't confuse one for the other. There goes the light rail. Woo! The light rail. It's actually pretty cool, but it is kind of ironic to seeing it zooming past huge amounts of structured parking. We have what are called the residences at Saltillo. We're getting a little closer to downtown now. You get a 324 square foot studio here for about $1,400 a month. I didn't know that 324 square foot studios existed outside of New York City, but I guess that's progress for you. I gotta say, this is the cheekiest part of this, is where it says all of this that you've been seeing is the Mexican American Heritage Corridor. I'm just thinking that actually wouldn't be out of place in Charlottesville in terms of a completely pointless virtue signaling sign that is totally betrayed by what is actually happening on this corridor. Now we're nearly back at downtown. You see I-35 there. This is sort of like the old style building that would have been here before. Again, this is closed off. It's going to be the next apartment block probably. Across from the Whole Foods with residences above. Again, we're talking here studios, the 1,500 to 2,000 range, and you're right by the highway. You know, is this a good thing or a bad thing, what's happened here? I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but what I'm trying to say is this is the sort of thing that can happen if you have a positive demand shock and no real control on what gets built. I think in contrast to Austin, in contrast to Charlottesville, a lot of what was displaced here was commercial, wasn't residential, and so that's a win, I think, that sort of conversion. But there was a neighborhood here, and there were people who lived here, and they do not live here anymore. And there were buildings that were affordable here, and homes that were affordable here, and what's here now is not affordable.
So what I just want to close with is that all of these buildings, they're mainly been filled with people who have come from outside Austin, and these are people who are wealthier than the people who lived here before. And when the first batch of them moved here, then restaurants were opened to cater to them, and that made the neighborhood more attractive to the next batch of people like them, the young professionals like them, and that means even more restaurants and amenities, and then you have a critical mass of potential workers for tech companies to move in, and that again makes it more attractive to people like that to live there, and it becomes a self-fulfilling process where you see the amenity effect dominate the supply effect. People will say it's just a question of simple supply and demand. You add supply and you will drive down prices. Now, truly, Economics 101 will tell you if you shift out the supply curve, you'll get some combination of more supply and lower prices. But in the real world, we're not making interventions on a graph. We're doing real world interventions, and it can affect not just the supply curve, but the demand curve. And that's what we saw in Austin. The new supply brought new people with different preferences, different characteristics, and their presence and the presence of the amenities that they called forth made the neighborhood more attractive to wealthy people like them and shifted out the demand curve. And the result is more supply and higher prices. Not clear that is what would happen in Charlottesville, but it is a risk and it's something to keep in mind. Thanks for listening and watching.